founder of Cohen Architecture, makes it onto this year's Forbes Small Giant list. His family business is turning over $12 million per year. But things weren't always so good. We ask him today about his incredible story. Phil, a real pleasure to have you on the show. Thanks very much for taking the time.
Yeah, I'm really honored.
Phil, correct me if I'm wrong, but when you started your company, you were, I would say, correct me if I'm wrong, almost at rock bottom. Now, there's lots of people, given the current challenges with the pandemic, the economic challenges, who might find themselves in a similar position. Mm-hmm. What advice would you give to these people at the moment?
Well, I tell you, I had a friend who helped me when I started out. We started out with less than nothing. I had grown up in Chicago, and I had been strung out on drugs and homeless for many years. And he died last year, but he said that when you're in pain, build something beautiful. And so while we're going through all this time of pain, that's basically what I've done with most of my life. Is I've had a lot of pain and I've had a lot of poverty. And while you're in pain, don't waste that pain and don't waste that darkness, and build something beautiful. And just be beautiful toward the people you're around, even though everything in you wants to scream and give up. So you have to keep hope alive.
And tell me a little bit about how you started the company.
Well, I started in 1975 in a neighbor's Pigpen, and I was in one of the poorest counties in Tennessee, and I started building porch swings from lumber that I got from the lumber yards, and they were out of walnut, cherry, and cedar, and I got $20 a piece for them. It took me all day to build one. And I was surprised that people would buy from me because I was such a messed up person. And then when we got married in '76, and half our house was our wood shop. And I built wooden trucks like you can see behind me. And my wife would do the artwork, and the kids would buy them. We got $10 a piece for those. The house was filled with dust. We made baby cradles, and my wife would make a little quilt. And we got $100 for those. It took several days to make those. And we had to can everything, and we had on a wood cook stove. We had to raise everything on so we couldn't afford groceries. And we just kept moving toward doing what we could and treating people right. And it gradually grew. In 1982, I got my first business license, and I was building cabinets for my UPS driver, and I reached out in desperation to some other cabinet shops, and I met a man who had been apprenticed by a German cabinet maker who offered to teach me how to build cabinets. And he taught me over the phone for 5 years. And somehow we got involved in local hospitals, and the next thing we got involved in building cabinets for Walmart. In the end, we ended up building cabinets for about 850 Walmart stores. My wife and I have 9 children. And now we've grown. We're a national company. We do about $12 million a year. We've won numerous awards, and several of our children work for us. And one thing we have, the most important thing that we have here is our workplace culture. And so we have a lot of people coming here who were like me, who were unemployable, who came from drugs and prison, and many of them have war trauma. They failed in business, but they're craftsmen. And they come, and because we have such a healthy culture, within a few weeks, their anxieties calm down, and they just start enjoying life, and many of them stay.
And tell me, what would you say to people who say, well, I'm out of work, I don't have business experience, I don't know how to start a company. What advice would you give them?
I had no business experience either. I couldn't even read a profit and loss statement. And I'd say, just like I said, I'll stick to my story. Build something beautiful. Do with what you've got, and get along with the people that you're with, and do something with them. And that's your best shot. Is you've got to keep hope alive, and you've just got to do something beautiful with the people that you're with. And each moment, you have to forgive a lot. Probably keep hope alive, and do something beautiful with your time. Don't just sit around. I'm not an educated man. I've read a lot of books, though. I've been hungry to read books about and learn about what I can. When I first started reading books, I'd read a paragraph and fall asleep and wake up 20 minutes later, and I had to discipline my mind to read.
That's incredible, incredible story and journey you've come through, Phil, and I really appreciate you taking the time to come and speak with us about it. Thanks, Phil.
Sure, thank you.
We've all seen videos of the vandalism in Portland. One of the small businesses there, Huber's Restaurant, is over 130 years old. James Louie's family has been involved in the business since 1881 when Jim Huber hired a Chinese immigrant to do the cooking. Now, James isn't sure that the restaurant will survive after 60 days of violent riots and 6 months of lockdowns. We spoke with him earlier. So, James, thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Paul.
What a year for you guys in Portland, James, I can only imagine. Maybe you can give us some insight how it's been for you.
Well, the combination of COVID-19 and the Black Lives Matter protests have really done a number on business. I mean, our sales are down dramatically. It's the slowest I've seen it in several years.
And how have the protests in particular affected both the consumers and the business people in Portland?
Well, people are afraid to come downtown because they don't want to get caught up in a protest march. Also, they don't want their vehicle vandalized. And so much of the protests have been on the violent side that, like I say, people are concerned about their personal property. The shop owners, you know, we have still a lot of stores with boarded up windows, graffiti on the walls, and it almost looks like a ghetto. It does look like a ghetto, and it's sad to see downtown Portland the way it is.
And most of the footage that we see shows people out at night rioting, these types of things. Is it just at night that this is affecting you? Can the stores operate during the day?
Well, during the day, yeah, stores are open. Some stores, not all stores. Some stores are going to wait till the COVID-19 pandemic gets over with, and also they're going to wait till the demonstrations get over with before they reopen, because they don't want to see their shops vandalized and looted again. But yeah, during the day, downtown Portland's like a ghost town. Then at night, especially once we get close to midnight, that's when the violent protesters start doing their thing.
And is there anybody you've been able to turn to, anybody who's offered assistance, any assistance that the business owners locally would like?
Well, we've been corresponding with the Oregon Restaurant and Lodging Association, and also the Portland Business Alliance, and you know they do what they can, but our civic leaders, they seem to not want to come down too heavy on the protesters, because one of the issues is police brutality, and they don't want to create more incidents. But on the other hand, what some of the protesters are doing, the damage to the Justice Center, the damage to the federal courthouse, it's totally uncalled for and does not enhance the Black Lives Matter movement at all.
And we've seen a lot of the footage around the courthouse. Has there been any damage caused to businesses like yourself or your friends or your peers in the local business community?
Well, yeah, as far as Huber's is concerned, we were proactive and we put up plywood on our windows the second day of the protests. But other businesses in the downtown area were vandalized and looted and damaged heavily. And like I said, in some cases, we kind of feel that it was just they were using Black Lives Matter movement as an excuse to steal and to be able to get away with it.
Yeah, this is an accusation that we've seen leveled at a lot of these, we could call them vandals, rioters, that they're usurping this movement, or they're kind of taking advantage of kind of I think the goodness in people's hearts and causing, as you mentioned, very uncalled for damage. It's very, as myself, as a kind of person who grew up in a small business, it's very heartbreaking to see it. As I mentioned, it's difficult to survive in the best of times. Come from a virus to this vandalism and riots is just impossible. So, James, I really appreciate you taking the time, and we wish you all the best. We'll catch up with you again afterwards.
Thank you, Paul. It was my pleasure.